Hey everybody, welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. My friend Michael Cohen is back with us in the back room with just a day to go before the election. Before we get to Michael, just one quick thing, folks. Tomorrow is the most critical, consequential election in U.S. history. Whatever you do, please vote. We need massive, massive turnout. And thank you for tuning in today. We appreciate you listening. We'd love to hear your comments, so email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please rate and review and follow or subscribe, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. So let's get to Michael Cohen. He is the host of the YouTube channel, The Michael Cohen Show. Michael, welcome back into the back room.
Andy, wonderful to be here, my brother. Wonderful to be here.
4 days to go. 4 days.
Right. I may not be able to be on the show anymore. I mean, I'm not, as a political prisoner under a Trump administration, he's going to allow me to come on your podcast. In fact, I'm not sure whether you're going to even be able to have this podcast show any longer.
I might be sharing a cell with you.
Listen, I know my way around the cell, so don't worry. I'll give you all the tips you need to know.
Yeah, well, you're likely towards the top of the enemies list. I think somewhere I'm probably on it because the whole family.
Hey, don't worry, I'll put in a good word for you.
Just tell me what I need to bring, like before I get sent.
Because that's the kind of guy that I am. I promise. I'll put in a good word for you, brother.
So I want to ask you about Tuesday, but let's stick with this for a second because this is a big thing. His so-called enemies list. Kamala Harris is talking about he's making an enemies list. I have a to-do list. How much are you really concerned if he would win about your own safety, about your own freedom, about all of it?
Look, everybody has to be concerned. It's not just those that are at the top of the enemy list or at the bottom of the enemy list. He's talking about fundamentally changing the way that we understand our democratic republic, the way that we have grown up understanding what the United States of America stands for. Mm-hmm. You're talking about loss of rights. I'm talking about women's rights, their rights to their own reproductive decision-making. You start hearing comments from Donald and Shady Vance about putting Liz Cheney before a firing squad.
Right.
That's what he was talking about. When you start hearing Trump talking about the public execution of four-star General Mark Milley because he said things that pissed him off. This is not normal rhetoric. This is not normal political discourse. This is a man who is completely unhinged, somebody who has lost all sense of reality, including what the role of President of the United States is supposed to represent.
Mm. So where do you think we stand at this point with 4 days away? How are you feeling about Tuesday? What's your take?
Well, I think that Kamala has this, and I don't agree with the polls. I have had my share of doubts as it related to the polls going back all the way to 2016. I have a pretty good sense of the floor in terms of what's going on. I describe these campaigns really as simple mathematics. I look at elections as simple mathematics. And I want to take your listeners through my thought process. We all remember as kids, you have addition and subtraction, simple addition and subtraction, where you would take a piece of paper, fold it, midway, and you have your plus sign, and then you have your minus sign. We know what Donald Trump started out with in 2016. And then we know what Trump had in 2020. And 2020 wasn't enough for him to win the election. So taking that number, has Donald Trump added or subtracted from that number of supporters? Taking into consideration there are new people who have joined the roll. I'm talking about the voters' roll. And then there are people who dropped off due to death, or they moved out of the country, or they have walked away from their U.S. citizenship. And I don't suspect that that's a big number either. I use the addition and subtraction in this way. We know that 30% of the Republican Party, we call them the Nikki Haley voters, have already said that they will not endorse Donald Trump. That's 30% of just the Republican Party. Where do you make that up? In the independents? Okay. If he wants to say that he's now doing great with the independents, sure. Based upon what? On your vile rhetoric against veterans? Against your rhetoric against women? Your announcements on how proud you are that you have been successful in overturning a 5-decade 50-year stare decisis decision on Roe versus Wade. You talk about 107% of black jobs are being taken by migrants, that Haitians are eating cats and dogs in Springfield, Ohio, that Mexicans are back to being the rapists, murderers, drug dealers that he talked about in 2015 when he came down the golden escalator, that Jews are cheap, that Palestinians throw rocks, etc. He has disparaged every single community, from LGBTQ plus to whomever. He has disparaged every community except for one: white supremacists. The same people that you see now flying flags on the back of their boats at a regalia, at a vessel regalia in Palm Beach, where they have the MAGA flag, 2 of them, on the backs of the boat, and inside, 2 swastika flags. And the folks that are on that boat, that little piece of shit boat that they have, saluting people on land. This is what Donald Trump's campaign has become about: whining, grievance, hatred, racism, sexism, misogyny, xenophobia, homophobia, transphobia, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism. I just don't see it as a winning combination.
In the decade or so that you were with him, because we've seen all these insane revelations that have come out in the last week or two about his fascination with Hitler. He wants Hitler's generals, blah, blah, blah. Did you experience any of that with him? Did that surface at all during that period?
The answer is yes. In fact, I write about it in my first book called Disloyal, where I was sitting in Trump's office with a gentleman that works for Trump who is of German descent. He was older at the time. Substantially older. We were talking about an issue that was taking place at Mar-a-Lago for the New Year's celebration. And during the middle of our discussion, which was about a lot of money, Trump stops the conversation and points to the gentleman and says to him, "You know, I was just thinking, I bet your family chased Michael's family through the Red Forest."
Jesus.
And I said, "Boss, you know, my father is a Holocaust survivor." So he goes, yeah, I know. That's why I brought it up. I bet his family chased it. So I'm sitting there. Meanwhile, the gentleman that was sitting next to me is one of the classiest people you've ever met. He is a fine man. He wanted to crawl up his own ass and die on this. He didn't know what to say. What did you want me to do? Grab one of like the golden shovels that they use, right, and hit him over the head with it? I mean, I'm not sure what the point was. It was just he had something on his mind, and despite like what your first grade teacher used to always tell you, just because you think it doesn't mean you should say it. He had to say it. These are the kind of statements. There's another story I tell in the book Disloyal, where I turn around and I say that we were on our way to Trump International Hotel and Towers, Chicago, and we were in the SUV after landing, and we went through a very, very poor neighborhood, a black neighborhood, on our way to the hotel. And Trump turned around and looked at me. He goes, "Only the blacks could live this way." And I said to him, "Boss, I disagree. There are plenty of poor white neighborhoods that look just like this, if not worse." He goes, no, only the blacks. And I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, right? These are the kinds of statements that are floating around in the head of Donald Trump.
So let me ask you this. You're a Jew. I'm a Jew. We see certain single-issue Jews that are like rabidly supporting him. What do you say to our fellow Jews in the face of all this Hitler shit the last week and a half? What do you say to them to maybe help change their minds in the next 4 days?
You cannot change their minds. I have had multitude of conversations with a whole slew of Upper East Side family members here in the city, Jews and some non-Jewish, and they are all in on Trump. And they're always trying to convince me that Donald Trump is better than Kamala Harris. Some have even gone so. I say, explain to me what it is about Trump that you think makes him better as a candidate, better as a president of this country than Kamala Harris. And they said, I don't like Kamala Harris's laugh. She's always smiling. She's always giggling. One girl even turned around and said to me, I don't like her teeth formation, as if she was some fucking dentist or something. I don't know what it was all about. And the truth is, we all know exactly what it is. And by the way, I'm going to write an op-ed when this election is all over, and I'm going to name a whole bunch of them. It'll make me unpopular here in the Upper East Side. But you know what? Responsibility and accountability should be had. We know exactly what it is about Kamala Harris. Let's not bullshit one another. We know what it is about Kamala Harris that they don't like. First and foremost, she's black. Mm-hmm. And second, that she's a woman. Mm-hmm. I have never seen more women not like Kamala Harris because she is a woman. It's almost like they want to, they're angry at her for being a woman, mm-hmm. and so that they want to suppress her. And that's what it's that she's black, mm-hmm. and that she's a woman.
Hillary Clinton had the same problem.
Same issue, though. Sexism. I got to tell you, I do have to tell you, there is obviously a very stark contrast between Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton was somebody that had a very hard time garnering support because she is not a likable person. Mm-hmm. I don't know her personally. She doesn't come off. Well,
they said she doesn't come off that way, but in person with
right as a likable person. As a person, I've only met her once. Well, I met her, I was at the Kennedy compound, and she was beyond nice. Mm-hmm. She was kind. She was sweet. She was engaging. She was everything that a politician should be. So I don't see her that way. Mm-hmm. And again, it's only off of one meeting, but she does not portray well as somebody who is likable.
Right.
Kamala Harris is very different.
Yeah.
But she does come off likable.
But let me ask you this, when you're talking to your neighbors and people you know up there, teeth formation, like I don't even know how to respond to that, but I do know how to respond to,
neither did I.
There were some good things that Hitler did. Like, how is that not 5 million fucking times worse than Kamala Harris's teeth formation?
Or
to a Jew. To a Jew.
By the way, that's a comment that was made in 2015, 2016. Not 8 years later, you see this boat regalia in Palm Beach County,
sure,
where my father, a Holocaust survivor, resides, and my mom, right? They reside. And you're watching his boats go down the waterway, the intercoastal, flying swastikas in 2024. Mm-hmm. And I say to them, as I did on my post, formerly Twitter, hey, Upper East Side friends, what say you about this? I then even did a second one asking Ivanka and Jared, how do you explain this to your children? The fact that my father has to see the flying of swastikas mm-hmm. in 2024.
In America.
Mm-hmm.
With a nominee who said Hitler did some good stuff.
And that he wants generals like Hitler had. A guy who his own sister turned around and said that he used to keep the writings of Adolf Hitler on his nightstand. Mm-hmm.
Well, because John Kelly is a liar, not Trump. You know, we were not
By the way,
supposed to
do you ever
believe.
notice that anybody that says anything that is derogatory towards Trump or calls him out, holding him accountable for his own dirty deeds is what? A liar,
Right.
a bullshit artist, a fraud, a fake, right? Including the fake news, right?
Everybody.
Where he now wants to go against CBS, NBC, ABC, anybody that does not take a knee to the
Sure.
king and profess their fealty to him.
It's crazy. Last question. What do you think is going to happen Tuesday? What are we looking like? A week from now, are we going to be crying or celebrating that America has just taken this ginormous progressive leap?
I have a hard time believing that there is a preponderance of Americans, more than 50% of Americans, that believe that Donald Trump is, one, qualified to be president again, or two, of the mindset to be president again. People are watching as he deteriorates on a day-by-day basis. And I think thanks to people like yourself or my YouTube channel or my podcasts, Mea Culpa or Political Beatdown, where I constantly remind the listener that this is a man who is imbalanced, who is unhinged, who is saying more and more things that are vile and un-American, that a man who has himself stated, I don't put my opinion into the mix. What I do is I use his words to re-emphasize the danger that he poses to our democracy. When somebody turns around and tells you who they are, believe them. When you have Donald Trump who talks about how he intends to rewrite the Constitution, understand he intends to rewrite the Constitution. When he talks about weaponizing the Department of Justice, using the military to go against his political enemies and his critics, understand that I am somebody who has already experienced this. I am the first and only political prisoner held by this country because I refuse to waive, as an American citizen, my First Amendment constitutional right. All right? And where I fear is that I will not be the last if, God forbid, Trump becomes president again. And I think that by restating this over and over, I think enough people understand the clear and present danger that he poses to our future and the future generations of this country. And so I do not believe that he will end up with a success. In fact, I have been saying, and I don't want to say it too often because I don't want voter apathy to set in. I need everyone listening to make sure that they're registered. Go to vote.org. It takes 30 seconds. Make sure you're registered and still on the voter roll. Most importantly, and then make sure on November 5th you actually get to the ballot and make sure that you cast your vote up and down the entire Democratic ticket, starting with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, because that's the only way that we keep our country. I think it could be a blowout. I actually believe that we can have a blowout. I think there's a lot of people who refuse to talk about it because this MAGA has become a cult where if you are in that cult and you talk negatively about it, you are immediately excommunicated, and that's their entire friend circle, male and female. But I do not believe that Trump will win this election, and I believe Kamala Harris will have it by a landslide.
I happen to agree with you. I've been saying the same thing. Fingers crossed for Tuesday. But if you and me are wrong, I am really going to count on you to help me navigate through that prison system.
Yeah, trust me.
I'm banking on it. Just tell me the best cigarettes to buy, because I know that's the currency in prison.
By the way, federal prison, there are no cigarettes.
So what's the currency then? There didn't used to be cigarettes?
Tuna, stamps, commissary, right? But there are no cigarettes. Only state has cigarettes and tobacco use.
Oh.
There is no smoking permitted There's no tobacco products permitted on federal property.
All right, just so that I understand it, because I'm going to start stocking up on tuna. Are we talking like in the oil or in water, the cans?
No. First of all, you don't get them in cans. You get them in paper pouches because the cans could be used as a weapon.
You see, I'm ignorant of all this stuff.
Come on, man. Get with the program, my brother.
Take care. Fingers crossed. Thanks, Michael. Talk soon.
You're welcome, pal.
Bye-bye. This episode of The Back Room was edited and produced by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-edited and co-produced by Matty Rosenberg and co-produced by Jen Hammoud. Our theme song was composed by Andrew Hollander, and our logo was designed by Cricket Lengyel. And special thanks to Patricia Wind. Please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, and also follow or subscribe. Until next time, keep your eyes on Washington, Hollywood, and your own backyards, and have a great week.